Hello and welcome to episode 109 of the Wasps podcast. I'm Kevin Gallagher. I'm joined again by Kieran Mooney. Kieran, how are you today?
I am good, Kev. I am good. Well, I'm better than good. What a weekend it was to be an Alloa fan. So it's very easy to jump on in our comeback podcast run after Saturday's result. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing good. It's been a busy old couple of weeks with work, so we're just managing to squeeze in podcasts whenever we can. And you might have seen it made its debut on YouTube last week.
I know.
My hands up. The 1 minute black screen was an error on my part. Don't adjust your laptop or anything, but we'll see how we go time wise. We might get this one up as well this week.
I didn't even clock beforehand that we were filming it for YouTube. Normally I'm in my pyjamas or my hair's all over the place, but I had the supporters club top on, so I must have known deep down that would have been our debut on the video.
It worked well. I take it that's why you've got the makeup on as well this week.
I've got the hair done.
So.
Yeah, we're sorted.
Today's episode, we'll look back at the win over Airdrie at the weekend, and there was a cup draw, believe it or not, on Sunday that we need to look back on as well. That's one of the ties on the round involving the Wasps. All being well, we should have Craig Telfer on at the end as well to look ahead to the league kicking off on Saturday at Stenhousemuir. But I'm going to start the podcast a little bit of sad news. I'm sure most supporters will have seen, and certainly if they watched the interview with Andy after the game on Saturday, they'll have heard reference to it, that unfortunately Jock Stewart passed away on the 24th of July. Not a guy that I knew personally, but I certainly knew exactly who he was. And I think for a lot of Wasps fans it'll be the same. If you didn't know him, you would have still known who he was. But yeah, really sad to see him pass away at the age of 80. Yeah,
a really iconic supporter. He's one of the supporters I have some of the most memories of starting to come to the game with some of his shouts. They were certainly of comedic value, and I think his passion for the club was, undoubted and really admirable. And I think just on that comment from Andy Graham in the post-match, I obviously did that interview and teed up a question at the end, but before we went live, it was the very first thing that Andy said. He said, I want to mention this, I want to put this on camera and put this on record. So it's something that's felt across the club, his passing, and I thought a really nice touch for Andy to mention it on the club channel as well.
Yeah, 100%. I'll be interested to see if the club do anything. It's a little bit unfortunate that it's obviously quite a while until our kind of first home game, but whether they do something, a minute's silence or a minute's applause or something, we'll obviously wait and see. But yeah, that doesn't surprise me with Andy at all, that he's obviously aware of it, and he'll have known Jock as well. So yeah, it was really, really, really good to see. We'll move on to the action on the field on Saturday. Went there, it was a winner takes all tie, going up against Airdrie, both the undefeated teams in Group C or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was the Wasps that absolutely turned up, came away with a win. We were going through, both teams were going through as it stood and going into the last couple of minutes there, but Steven Buchanan popped up with a winner at the end. Lineup, probably no surprise to see an unchanged lineup from the win over Dundee.
No real surprise. I think that was something that was mentioned by both skipper and manager after the game. People have got into the team on merit, potentially weren't on paper starters, but they've done absolutely nothing wrong to lose their place. And I'm thinking of guys like Owen Foster in that circumstance. They've done absolutely, they've exceeded expectations, and there was no reason to change it from a team that just beat a Premiership outfit. So no surprises in the starting 11, and it looks, that looks one of your strongest 11s on paper, and a good bench as well. It was a decent team line to read on Saturday at 2:30 or whenever it came out.
Yeah, that was my first kind of proper look at Owen Foster on Saturday, and I was impressed with him. Certainly seen in the first half, he was eager to get down the wing and support Steven Buchanan as well. So yeah, it was a good outing for him. Good to see, as you say, that he retained his place as well, because he'd obviously merited on the previous performances. I really liked the way we were set up. I thought there was it's funny that I'd mentioned it in the pre-season games, that when we talked about, I'd like to go and see who the trialists are, and I kind of looked for patterns of play that have maybe been worked on. I think on Saturday you could really see there was a clear game plan in the way that Alloa were set up, in terms of, certainly without the ball in particular, they were more than happy to give up. Like say Sean McGinty, happy for him to have the ball and bring it up to pretty much halfway, and that's where that kind of they would meet the wall of the Alloa kind of formation from there. Also seen as well, certainly when Airdrie moved the ball, which I thought they moved the ball really well, as we've come to expect with Rhys McCabe's Airdrie side. When they moved it from side to side, you could see how hard Cammy O'Donnell on the left and Steven Buchanan on the right were working, so that they became that extra man support and helping out their fullback. And I just thought the way we were set allowed them that space up to halfway, but then as soon as there was a forward pass from there, straight away your Stevie Hetheringtons, your Stephen Skugels, your Curtis Roberts, they harassed, they pressed as soon as the ball came into our half. And I just thought we were set up in a really, really solid formation.
We talk about continuity in terms of teams that start the seasons really strongly, and I think we've seen that with Stenhousemuir, for example, last season, and I think you can see that in Alloa, how that gel of guys that have worked together a long time coming back together, they are familiar playing with each other. But there was points at last season where we were chopping and changing, but like you've mentioned there, defensive solidity in this Premier Sports Cup campaign has been the strong point for me. You look at 2 clean sheets, one against Dundee. Even on Saturday, the 2 goals, one's a deflection and then the other's a penalty. So teams are struggling to break us down. We seem very comfortable sitting back in our shape, holding it. We've got aggressive pressers in Luke Rankin at the front, the 2 wingers that are happy to dig in, and then you've got this trio in midfield, which is a trio we've not seen that often, but one that is extremely strong. So it's encouraging to see that defensive solidity, and I think that's been a big part of our success in this League Cup campaign. On the flip side, you could look at it from an Airdrie perspective. If we were the OTL podcast and say, well, without any natural striker, we're never going to challenge defences, and a lot of it is going to be played in front of defences, but Alloa can only deal with what's in front of them, and Airdrie still caused lots of threat on the wing, lots of quick runs, lots of interchanges, and Alloa on the most part dealt with that, and Liam McFarlane was only really tested once or twice.
Yeah, I mean, from the Airdrie perspective, I said afterwards, they're missing like a Callum Gallagher, that focal point, as a centre forward. I think as well, Adam Frizzell, whatever you want to call it, that's a big miss. That's a big miss in that midfield. You've seen when Dylan Easton moved on, you thought he was going to be that miss, but Frizzell basically went straight into that role and was excellent in that role, and you can see there's a big miss with him, but the focal point of a centre forward like a Callum Gallagher as they used to have, you can see that's a glaring omission from that Airdrie team, which I thought out with that were looked really good. As I say, they moved the ball. There was a passage of play in the first half, pretty much right in front of where the Alloa supporters were sitting, where Airdrie played their way out of defence, and I turned around to the boy next to me and I just said, that's phenomenal football to watch. The way that right on the edge of the box they were able to move it out and manoeuvre lots of quick passes, and all of a sudden they were away. They're a good side, and I'm with you. It seems strange to say that conceding 2 goals, but I thought it was a really good defensive performance from Alloa on Saturday, despite the 2 goals. As you say, one's a penalty that I think Uni Henderson seemed to go down in instalments when he eventually hit the deck on Saturday. And I didn't actually realise, and it's only a couple of things I've listened to since that have talked about the goal being a deflection. I didn't see any deflection. I thought it was an absolute screamer of a goal from your centre half. But yeah, out with that, a shot in the first half that McFarlane did well to save. Other than that, there wasn't a whole lot of tests. I thought the biggest threat really came from King's corners. I thought they were absolutely deadly set pieces that he was delivering, and I tell you, McFarlane did well to deal with them.
That's exactly the point that I was going to make. I think Liam McFarlane was extremely commanding in his box.
Yep.
Plucked out the air when he needed to, but strong punching when it was a little bit ropey as well. I think there was only one potentially that flew to the back post, and the guys hit it off the outside of the post. You're not asking your keeper to pluck that one up, but I think he had it covered anyway, and it was such a tight angle, so they were causing problems. But Liam McFarlane filled me with plenty confidence in the middle of the net. I think it was an opening 20 minutes where we did have to deal with those sorts of moments quite a bit. Airdrie came out flying, they came out positive, and that's what I probably expected. But as the half settled, Alloa were more than a match for them. And maybe the goal in that opening 20-25 minutes came against the run of the play. But for the rest of the half, after the goal, Alloa were comfortably in that game, comfortably in possession, and arguably the better team.
Yeah, I think just that setup defensively, happy to give it the ball, knew that Airdrie would have a lot of the ball, but they weren't going to have an easy time getting past that kind of setup. And I think the most important thing almost when you're, if that's what the game plan is and that's how you're going to operate, you have to offer something when you've actually got the ball, and that's exactly what Alloa did on Saturday. Whether it was through, we're not going to see Cammy O'Donnell making runs away up the left wing. That's not, Cammy doesn't have the pace for that, but you're able to get him and he's able to create and he's able to pick a pass. On the other side, you've got Steven Buchanan, has those legs, will get up the wing, and I thought Luke Rankin put in a ton of work as well, offering himself, going out, supporting out to those wings, and allowing the likes of Curtis Roberts and in particular Skugel, who played pretty high in the midfield. As soon as we had the ball, you could see Skugel was really the man from the midfield, who had that job to get forward and almost become the sort of second striker. I just thought the setup did really well. Just as we're talking McFarlane, the second part of the kind of game plan that I did notice with us was we'd obviously set to target Airdrie's sort of left back area. I think it's King that was playing left back. Almost every time that McFarlane had the ball at his feet, you could see that he was putting balls onto the right wing. Owen Foster had obviously been tasked to get high up beside Buchanan, and that's who McFarlane was hitting for. And I tell you what, McFarlane's distribution, I think his first two of the match, he put a couple of wayward kicks in the first half. After that, I think he put the ball on top of Owen Foster's head every single time for the rest of that game. So that was the kind of things it was nice to see. I could tell watching that that's a game plan that Andy sent them out to do, and you can see them executing it, and it was nice to see those sort of things that had obviously been thought about. There was a player to target, and this is how we're going to go about it.
Yeah, spot on, and that's really encouraging going into the league campaign, as well as how structured they look and how you can see those patterns of play come to fruition. The players that you mentioned, the two of them there, we've waxed lyrical about Liam McFarlane. He seems an absolute shrewd pick-up, so composed, so natural, so experienced despite his younger years. But let's have a couple of minutes chat on Owen Foster as well. What a moment for him to score his first senior goal and open the scoring. And I think I touched on it in one of the post-match interviews. Just caps off what has been an excellent breakthrough Premier Sports Cup campaign. The guy was at the exit trials or involved with the PFA in the summer, and now in a matter of a couple of weeks he's going to be walking out at Ibrox off the back of a really strong Premier Sports Cup campaign against your Dundees, your Airdries, and it's just a really good story, and I've really enjoyed watching him just grow, even from that first friendly that you mentioned to the performance on Airdrie on Saturday. He wins a lot of flick-ons, he uses his height well, and that's how he gets the goal, because he's leaped mightily to get on the end of that cross from Steven Buchanan and open the scoring, and that will do him the world of good confidence-wise, and knowing that he's more than good enough to play at this level as well, because I think that's belief for young players is such a big part of it, and he should have absolutely no doubts going into the campaign ahead that he's good enough to play at this level, if not more.
Credit Buchanan there, as you're saying as well. He actually did really well with the assist, because he didn't panic with it. I think he kind of sort of panicked just before it when he looked to shoot and kind of mishit it, but then he was quite composed to just lift that ball, just put it back into the danger area and let someone attack it, and it's another assist for, statistically, what has been a phenomenal League Cup campaign for Steven Buchanan. But on Owen Foster, he's done so well. It's Sean McGinty that he's leapt above, and Sean McGinty must be about 7 foot tall. He's absolutely massive. And I mentioned last week about Foster he looks quite tall, looks a good build, particularly for a fullback. Looks tall for a fullback. I would add to that this week that he uses that well. As I say, the clearance is out for McFarlane. The amount that he won, as you say, winning the flick-ons and stuff like that. but then for the goal itself, that's the big moment, the special moment, and he gets way above anyone else and does well. Could panic and head it up into the air, but he just gets it on target. That's all you can ask for, is get it on target and make Airdrie try and stop it, make them try and save it, and he gets his reward with his first senior goal. Brilliant moment, really nice celebration as well. The whole team there around him when he gets that goal. And yeah, I'm with you. A really nice story of someone. It kind of, I suppose, different because of the route that they've came through, but it maybe harks back a little bit to like what we've seen. Brad Rodden when he first came in, this guy coming in as a trialist and having to win a contract basically, and then goes and seen early season goals from Brad Rodden, and we've seen from Owen Foster really good performances, and he gets that goal as well. It's a really nice kind of sort of sub story of the League Cup campaign.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's brilliant. We'll get the two blips away. The penalty, the deflected goal, or the other way around, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I don't want to deep dive too much into. I think on first viewing it, to me, it didn't look like a penalty, and then the players also thought that. But then the more I watched it, maybe he does get his feet caught.
I can see why it's given.
I can see why it's given as well. And Henderson had caused problems all day. I did watch Henderson on Saturday and think, oh, if he was in our team, if we managed to get that one over the line, it would have been very nice. He's a just so much energy, so much energy. But a frustrating player to play against because he is so quick, and you are going to get yourself tangled up in the box. We obviously concede that. We concede the deflected goal, and it was something that Lewis mentioned on commentary. He questioned what will happen when Alloa go behind, because we haven't gone behind in the League Cup campaign yet, and what sort of, not to question their character, but how are we going to react to it, was what he was proposing on the commentary. And the team answered that and then some. It was only a couple of minutes, some really good play, and then we were back level again. And that, to me, is that character and that determination, and that we've come out in the second half and we're very quickly back down 2-1 going out the cup, to just flick of a switch, get yourself back up there and pull yourself level again. That was really, really encouraging, the way that we reacted to two blows.
Yeah, and as you say, it's a test there, because you've gone in ahead at the break, and it's only 5 minutes really into the second half, and they're level. It's only 10 minutes then after that, and all of a sudden you're behind. And I think I probably sat there and felt I kind of expect Airdrie to go on, gain more confidence for this, and maybe they'll go and get another one, and we kind of the hopes kind of peter out. But they reacted so well to the fact that that we go and win that penalty just 2 or 3 minutes after we've went behind. I mean, you can't ask for I cannot ask for a better way to respond to going behind, by literally going up the other end of the pitch, and Captain Cool slots home another penalty to bring you back in it. And honestly, from that second goal going in, I wouldn't say that necessarily Alloa went out and were all over Airdrie and dominated the game, but really, I think from the moment Taggart's penalty came in, I only seen if someone was going to get a winner, I did think it would be Alloa from there. I didn't see that kind of response from Airdrie, to us getting back level.
Before we jump on to talk about that massive moment, that winner, the penalty for me is great. I really like, obviously, Scott Taggart stepping up. Everybody in that stadium knows that he's not missing. It's just so nice to have someone like that with the confidence to slot it home. But for me, and it gives us an opportunity to talk about that trio in midfield, because it's the clip from Stephen Hetherington into the box. It's Roberts that's made the run, who's won the ball. But just in general, that trio, Skugel, Roberts, Hetherington, they were fantastic on Saturday. They were really, really good. And I think if you are going to pick out any one of them, and it would be unfair to the other two, but Stephen Hetherington for me was outstanding on Saturday. Just how much he was available, how willing he is to take the ball on in difficult situations, take it off his centre half, drive forward on the half turn. And Skugel and Roberts are exactly the same. They do a power of work. It's a trio that all these three guys have been at the club a long, long time, but we don't get to see it that often, or we didn't see it often last season, I should say. But if we can keep the three of them fit in that sort of form, that's an excellent midfield three.
Yeah, the three of them were excellent on Saturday, and I'm exactly. Stevie was the pick of them for me. He was for me. He was the best player on the park, and it showed for me exactly what was missing last year. And I suppose it's a little bit sad to think of that. It did give me the feeling of what could have been. If we had those three. Talked last week about Skugel last season, how he was having to do 2 or 3 different jobs sometimes in the same game because Curtis and Stevie were missed so much of the season. And I think there was a little bit of that when you seen it on Saturday. The feeling was that it's a little bit regret of what could have been last season. I'll go out and say I think as a central midfield 3, I don't think there's a stronger midfield 3 in League One this season. I think that 3 is the strongest in the league, and I'd include the full time sides in that as well. They complement each other really. They're all different, but they all have different jobs. But I think because they are different, they complement each other really well within that. You have the creativity of Skugel, the guy who can turn a sixpence, can get up, can have an effort from outside the box, that kind of thing. You've got that engine and that work rate of Curtis Roberts, who's going to drive you up the pitch. And kind of mentioned about Calvin Orsay last week. That's how I kind of see Calvin Orsay, someone who can carry you forward. Curtis Roberts is exactly the same, and he'll take you through the middle of the pitch. And just that energy throughout a kind of full 90 minutes. He'll be as much running in the 90th minute as he was in the first minute of a game. And you have Stevie there, who is maybe the key to all of this, in that he allows these other two to go and do what they need to do and to push forward, because he's so, from a football point of view, he has such a high level of football intelligence in terms of where to be and when to be there. I kind of think back to likes of, it's a kind of like a Neil Lennon would play, you talk back whatever 15-20 years ago for Celtic, and that he's not necessarily, I don't mean this as a disservice to see, he's not necessarily, it's not the skill of a Skugel. He doesn't have the pure engine running ability of Roberts, but the football brain is there, and it takes him into the correct positions, and he's just such a solid holding midfielder. Seen it, against Bonnyrigg in the cup when he came on the second half, how the midfield just completely changed when he came on, and he's just that rock sitting in front of that back four. And again, it just puts me back to it's shown what we really missed last season.
Well, he's back, and hopefully stays back. He looks sharp, he looks fit.
He does.
Touch wood that's something that continues as the season goes on. As the game was petering out, it didn't feel like both teams were happy for a draw. It definitely felt like both teams still wanted to win the game. It was a really exciting game from start to finish. I extremely enjoyed it. But it was Alloa that nipped in front at the end, and what a way to win it as well. Sean McGinty, loose ball. To be fair, I didn't realise how bad an afternoon he had until Alloa Stats called him out. Yeah.
Absolute shocker.
I didn't know Alloa Stats had that in him either, to be fair, to absolutely ruin the boy. But yeah, it's a really poor pass. But again, it's that anticipation from Steven Buchanan. It's that legs, that energy, that drive. 89 minutes into what has been a really hard game and a really hard couple of weeks as well, because Steg has played most of those minutes. So they have that energy to drive forward, and it was only really the option was to shoot and to have that composure, something that people have been saying we need a little bit more of, that kind of goal threat, that composure. I think Tags mentioned it in his post-match. It's because we know he can do it like that, and when you get Steven Buchanan with that composure matched with that energy and that pace, it's a real dangerous weapon, and it's a lovely finish. Just slots it into the bottom corner, and fantastic scenes in the away end. I was loving it over on the other side as well. Just such a great moment to win the group in that style. It's one that you can't downplay it. It's one that we'll look back on with years to come, and with such fondness. And yeah, it was a special goal.
Yeah, 100%. It's been a special 4 games for Buchanan. When you look at the assists and obviously the goal to a match winning, group winning goal to top it off on Saturday, we've said it a number of times over the last couple of years that it's looking for. We know he's got the pace. We know he can run it at defenders. Looking for him showing that confidence to go at defenders exactly as he did on at the end there on Saturday. And it's always been that. Can we see now? I think that was my challenge at the start of last season. Was can we see, going into last season, can we see the the goal contributions add to the assists, the goals? I mean, you cannot you cannot blink at his return in the group stage. It's a phenomenal return, and he's kind of been, even before that the match winning goal, he's kind of been a bit of one of the the highlights of the whole League Cup group campaign. The return that we've seen from Steven Buchanan. So yeah, I hope it gives him that confidence to go into the season, because I think you can see that I would say it feels, and then there will be change. I'm sure there'll be a couple of loanies to come in and bits and bobs here and there, like the LD to come back in. But I already feel as if maybe Andy's kind of got he's pretty much got his starting 11 there, and it's going to take a big drop in form or someone to come on and really excel to kind of dislodge these guys. They've earned these jerseys from the League Cup campaign to go into the season, and I feel like your likes of Cammy O'Donnell's and your likes of Steven Buchanan's, they're going to get a run here. They've earned that opportunity, and I feel like Andy's the kind of manager who will give those players, you've earned it. Now you've got this opportunity. I'll give you that run at keep that jersey. That's the next challenge. Is you've done well to win that place. You're playing well now. Can you maintain that so that you keep that jersey? And that's the challenge to them. I hope the whole team, and certainly Steven Buchanan in particular, I hope they take that confidence from the group campaign, because it's been a massive success, and it's completely changed the feeling around the club. A feeling of a bit of apathy to maybe 3-4 weeks ago to now. I'm guessing we're going to go and talk about the draw just now. We've got a glamour tie, so to say, to look forward to, but we're now going into a league campaign, and it's probably adding pressure now, because we're going into it with, certainly for me, a heck of a lot more optimism than I did before the League Cup.
That was the way that, and when I spoke to Andy post-match, I kind of framed the question as, will it give the players encouragement, motivation going into the season? And of course it will. They'll know they can be buoyed by the performances they've had. But he was very quickly turned that round to, we've set the standard. The lads know like how good they can be. They know the level that we expect. And that's like what you're saying. Those are those players' jerseys now. Go on and keep them. There's going to be plenty of other games with the KDM Challenge Cup, league games before cup games. So guys like Andrew Clark, LD, Daniel Church, all those boys that are sat on the bench, they're going to have opportunities as well coming off the bench, but the standard has been set by your Steven Buchanans and Cammy O'Donnell's to go on and keep that jersey, and that's the sort of healthy competition you need in a group across the full season. So it's going to be really exciting, and to me, that front three, all being academy boys, all having strong positive League Cup campaigns, it's just so nice to see as an Alloa fan, and that's what you want. You want to see success stories, and you want to see these guys come through, and it's been a, for me, that was the perfect ending to the League Cup campaign, because Steven Buchanan has been so influential with his numbers across the 4 games, and he didn't get his number against Dundee, but he certainly got his name in lights on Saturday. And to turn the attention to the draw, he said prior to the draw it would be a dream to go to Celtic Park or Ibrox. Well, he's made his dream come true, because the team have got Rangers away on the 16th or the 17th of August. I think that will just depend on European football for Rangers, which will be decided in the next week or so. It's a massive, massive game for the club. It's been, a good few years since we have gone to one of the big two, in terms of going to their place in a cup game, and financially the numbers that are getting thrown around are huge for the club. But it's it's testament to the achievement. We are certainly specialists when it comes to the League Cup campaign. When you look at the stats of only 3 times of teams in League 1 or below qualified with a perfect record, and 2, that's Alloa. We deserve the opportunity to go and have this occasion and have this day out for the supporters, for the players. But the standard's been set. Let's go, and we've seen what's happened in the past at Ibrox, especially. go there with full belief. You've got nothing to lose. You've got this massive stage in front of you. Go on and take that opportunity, whatever it may look like. And it's been quite nice to be looking back over the last few days of fond memories at Ibrox in the last 10 or so, 15 years. It can be done, and it's it's what the cup's all about. It's about these stories and fairy tales. So I'm excited for it. It was a draw that when I seen it, it definitely put a wee smile on my face. So I can't wait for it.
It's a great draw, and I think the more I've kind of thought about it, and I know like the pitch getting done, there's a lot of kind of grant funding and stuff like that, but it made me think about things like that. There is investment that's been made there in terms of upgrading the pitch. There's talk about the investment, the kind of the media police sort of thing as well. We're talking about the railway end, the plans last season being reapproved for something there, and you think about, the numbers getting quoted, 200 grand, $250,000 plus that it could be from this game. It's going to be televised on Premier Sports as well, so there'll be the addition of TV money. And you think about with everything like that that's going on off the field at the club just now, my immediate reaction is, Andy, get the checkbook out. It can fund players coming in, but yeah, I kind of say that in jest. I think that more the impact this could make off the park. You look at the likes of an Arbroath, and okay, it wasn't a one-off cup tie, but their time in the Championship, you can see how much when you go to Gayfield they've invested off the park with the money from the success they've had in the Championship seasons. The hospitality, the turns, everything like that. They've really upgraded what's happening off the park, and I just think it's kind of like a dream timing wise for us to get this draw, because that money will go a long way towards these or it should hopefully go a long way towards these kind of ground improvements. It may make a difference on the playing field as well. Talked before about Stirling Albion a couple of seasons ago ended up getting through, got the it was a home tie against Aberdeen they got, but getting that kind of money in, that can be the difference, an extra one or two players or something like that. The profile of the club as well, there's a lot this year, the kind of the development, or the kind of I can't remember the name of it, but the link up with the teams above for loanees and stuff, and even just putting loanees out in general, it improves the profile of the club on that account. And do you know what I said to someone today about it, and I was talking about it's the toughest, Celtic and Rangers away, that's the toughest draw you can possibly get. And someone said to me, well, they'll be going there as long as they don't take a real heavy hammer. And I turned around and says, the manager will be putting them out with, let's go and win this game. That'll be Andy's attitude. I think it'll be cautiously. We've seen a sort of a defensive setup on Saturday, ready to counter attack. I'm expecting it's going to be something similar. I'm not expecting us to be going flying at them from the first whistle, but. Look, we've done it before. We've done it before in a cup competition, so why not go out there and do it again? To finish up this week's episode of the podcast, I'm joined again by Craig Telfer to look ahead to the opening league game of the season against Stenhousemuir. Craig, good to have you back on. How are you doing tonight?
I'm very well, Kevin. Thank you very much for getting in touch. Always a great pleasure to talk about the Alloa Stenny game, so I'm really looking forward to getting a chance to catch up with you.
Yeah, good to have you on. I know that you've not long completed your 10.5, nearly 11-hour marathon lower league preview show for the Terrace podcast with Sean. So hopefully you're not all podcasted out just yet, and we can look ahead to Saturday.
Not at all. I know that 10.5 hours sounds like a long podcast. I mean, well, it sounds like it is a long podcast, but I think it's you're pretty much your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about all 30 teams outside the top flight. I think there's at least about 20 minutes for each team discussing the ins and the outs, how they'll set up, how they're in shape for the year ahead. So it's a mammoth listen, but I think it's if you've got an interest at the level, it's a worthwhile one. But I'm always happy to talk about football. There's never 10.5 hours, 100.5 hours. It's all good stuff, all worthwhile stuff, man.
I've listened to a lot of the League One sections so far, and I'll not mention what you've said about Alloa and your prediction for where they'll finish. But suffice to say, the invite to come on was almost rescinded, and I was trying to shoehorn Sean McGuigan in to take your place this evening. But Well, look, but we had you on the start of last season, and I remember asking you about the season before, and obviously Stenny winning the League Two Championship. I'm going to do kind of similar tonight as we look ahead to the new season. I remember when you came up, I think you said to me, you know, 8th is basically that is the aim for that season is finish 8th, no relegation, no playoffs, another year in League One. I think it's fair to say you absolutely lit up particularly in the first probably 2/3, 3/4 of the season. I thought Stenny absolutely lit up League One last season. We won not just the results they were getting, but the way they were playing as well. And you end up that final day of the season, we were clawing you back. You had your stutter towards the end. We overtook you going at that final day, and then we blew it. You guys did the business, and you end up your first season back in League One, and you finish in the playoff positions. Wasn't to be in the playoffs themselves, but I mean, it must have been a brilliant season to watch for you.
Aye, the pretty much since Gary Naismith came, or certainly when Gary Naismith had his first summer in charge of the club, the summer of 2023, from that point up until where we are now, it's been an absolute privilege watching Stenhousemuir. The season we won League Two was incredible. Last season was superb as well, completely unexpected. As you said there, I'd have happily taken 8th place. Consolidate, maintain your position in the division, and try to kick on and establish yourselves as a League One club. But instead that, I think we completely destroyed everyone's expectations. I think that the league was really there for the taking as well. I think a lot of sides would have looked at the division and thought, we really fancy our chances, and it helped the fact you had 2 teams that were in administration and had points deductions, and then you had an athletic side who had the most makeshift teams. Every week was a makeshift team they were putting out there just because of injuries, and they could never really build up a head of steam and put together serious results. So it felt as though that for a lot of sides, you didn't really need to concern yourself with the bottom of the table. So that felt as though it opened up a number of points, a number of positions further up. You had a Kelty Hearts team in transition, a Montrose team who it felt they were making cutbacks, and that kind of just left that like ourselves for those final that final playoff spot, because you'd assumed that the 3 full-time teams would take up the first, second and third, and ultimately that's what transpired. But it was once we sussed out the division, and you go and watch the first couple of 9 games, and you think, there's some teams who are a lot better than us. I remember watching Montrose losing 3-0 and thinking, they're something else. When we got beaten by Kelty Hearts under Michael Tidser, you're thinking, this is a team that can really play football. But once the players acclimatised themselves, they went on just a fantastic run of form. And it was just, you were going to games really excited. You like no expectations, but you were beating some of the better sides in the division, like beating Queen of the South 2-1 at Oakville View. Brilliant stuff. And they got to the game, I think it was in middle of February, beat Arbroath 2-0 it was live on BBC Alba. And just thinking, there's 2/3 of the season to go, and Stenhousemuir are top of the table. It's absolutely ridiculous that they're in this position. And unlike the previous year, where I thought Stenhousemuir are probably going to win this but at this stage, when it was such a large gap at the top, Stenhousemuir are probably going to win this. There was always that sense of disbelief that Arbroath have been able to sign like Sam Stanton and Andy Winter and Aaron Muirhead, and they've got Fraser Taylor in there, who was the best player in the division last season. And I just think the run of form over that final quarter was quite alarming, quite disappointing, and we let the other teams back into it, including yourselves, who at one point looked as though you were going to finish in mid-table. And I think it's really bad on Alloa's part that you lost in the final day to Kelty Hearts, and we were able to beat an already relegated Dumbarton to subsequently re-leapfrog you back into the position. So never in a million years did I think we'd finish in 4th, and I think we knew that going into the playoffs, Airdrieonians were far stronger than every other side competing in it, and it wasn't a surprise to lose to them, but it was great fun. Just remember at the end of the season, the game against Airdrie, we'd lost that match, I think it was 2-1, we'd been beaten at the Excelsior, and just clapping the players and just being so proud of them. That was it. I mean, we went to Airdrie and having lost 3-1 in the first game, thinking, very unlikely we're going to turn this round, but just being so proud of the manager and the players and just clapping them off and just going up the road thinking, that was brilliant. What a season that was. I can't wait for the next one.
Yeah. So talk to me about summer then. It's I'm looking at the kind of transfer business that Stenny have done just now, and I'm kind of looking at the outs first of all, and I mean, two names really kind of stood out to me. Nat Wedderburn,
Yeah.
moving on. I think it's Cowdenbeath that he's went to. Well, I'll say three, and Blair Alston obviously as a kind of name, but it was more Matty Yates was the player that's kind of stood out for me. It looks like it could be a bit of an ill-fated move that he's actually made. Waiting to see what happens with Hamilton this season. But talk to me about the kind of the summer business, and particularly those players that have gone out. What kind of impact is that going to have on this season?
Start by looking at the players out then, and we can start by talking about Nat Wedderburn. And Nat Wedderburn had been at the club for 4 years. Just what an impact that he had in the team. I had written him off. Every summer I had written him off. I remember when Gary Naismith came in and said that if you want to change the way this team's playing, Wedderburn's one of the players you're going to have to let go because he's too slow for the kind of football that we need. He's quite immobile, can get turned quite easily, and I think we need a bit more legs in the middle of the park. And funnily enough, at the AGM, Gary Naismith had said that Wedderburn was actually one of the first players he was thinking of moving on, but instead he changed the position that he had. He had him playing sort of a slightly more reserved role in the two alongside Mikey Anderson, and he flourished, and Wedderburn turned out to be an excellent player for Stenhousemuir. It's very easy to focus on the fact that he is quite big and lumbering and not focus on the stuff he is really good at. He is incredibly strong. I think he must have been one of the most physically imposing midfielders in the lower leagues. When he does that thing, when he'd stretch across the front of other players and just use that big arse of his to edge them out of the way, get his left foot on the ball, open up and create play from there. There was no one else quite like him. I just think that laterally he lost his place in the team when Scott McGill came in, and then it became Scott McGill and Michael Anderson were playing that double pivot role, and it felt like Wedderburn had reached the end of his natural time at Stenhousemuir, and he's away back to Cowdenbeath. I think he lives in Fife. Cowdenbeath were the team who he signed for when he came up to Scotland, so I think there's a bit of an emotional connection there. And we all wish him well. We all really, really wish him well because he turned out to do us an excellent turn at Stenny. Yates, I think, again, referring back to the AGM when Naismith was asked about him, it was a sort of mutual decision for Yates to go. Yates hadn't quite hit the heights that he had done in the championship winning season, and I think that in terms of just looking at his numbers, not quite what we expected from the player. I think there might have been a money issue as well there, that we might not have been able to afford to keep him on, but there was always the expectation amongst the fans that regardless, even if Stenhousemuir had won promotion, Yates would be away to play full-time football. I think he'd served his time at part-time level with Stranraer and Stenhousemuir, and he was good enough, and he lives like a full-time football player. He's still like, I know his dad would come to the games and he would say that he would cook separately from the rest of the family. If there's a big meal being made, he'd be making his own stuff. All the food would be measured out and portioned out, so it's all calorie controlled. So he really took it seriously, and it was great to see him get that move into full-time football. You maybe have to ask why that team was Hamilton Academical, who I think a lot of people knew were a basket case from their time last season. And I hope that, as you said there, I hope he's able to work something out there, and he can play football. It's probably not going to be at Hamilton Academical, but hopefully that's somewhere else. And as for Blair Alston, that kind of came out of nowhere. Blair Alston had signed a 2-year contract when he joined the club, and his numbers were good in terms of goals, but he always felt like a bit of a misfit in this Gary Naismith team. Naismith likes his
exactly
players.
What you mean.
Yeah, Naismith wants his players to be full throttle and energetic, and a lot of that comes from working hard when you don't have the ball. And I think a lot of the time games could pass Alston by. When Stenhousemuir were winning, Alston was a great player to have in the team because he was probably chipping in with a goal, and he would do like wee clever passes and nice wee touches that could really open the game up, and you get really excited by him. However, when Stenhousemuir were up against it, he just wasn't the player to do it. Comparing to Matty Yates, who would play in the same position, even when Yates was having a stinker, he would still run himself into the ground for the team and really work hard, and I don't think we got that from Alston. So again, Alston did us a good turn, but I think it was in his best interest for going forward that he was perhaps moved on. He hasn't found a club yet. I hope he's able to keep playing football, but I think it was not the best sign that Stenny made, despite the fact that his goals were quite good, if you know what I mean.
I do. See, as an opposition fan, he's not a player that going up against him that you really kind of feared. But then you look at the return that he's at, and it's a really, really impressive kind of goals assist return that he had. But Yates was he just looked more of a threat.
Totally.
So it's a strange one, but yeah, I did notice that they kind of mutually agreed to him, ending the contract a sort of season early. So kind of an interesting one to see what was going on. Talk to me then about the players coming in. I'll admit, I've not with the success, the ridiculous unbeaten run that Alloa are on, taking the League Cup group stage by a storm. Everything else within Scottish football has passed the way by. But I believe League Cup campaign, obviously this year with trialists being allowed, Stenny have kind of utilised trialists, potentially amateur contracts as well with players.
I think you've got to break Stenny's signings into two. I think there's the actual players that Stenny have signed and the Magnificent Seven who were signed in short-term deals.
I've seen that quoted, yeah.
So the three players, the first one that was brought into the club was Finlay Gray from Dumbarton, who is effectively, he's going to be given the number 10 jersey, so he will be playing, basically fulfilling what Matty Yates was doing last season. I think while Yates is perhaps a better all-round football player, Gray has got so much about him. I think he's a real good box-to-box midfielder, someone that's got absolutely bags of energy, bags of enthusiasm, and I think I loved watching him at Dumbarton, and I think for him, his time at Dumbarton, I think he needed to kick on, and I think that joining us is a good move, both for Stenhousemuir and for him, and I think he will add a lot of energy into the middle of the park, the kind of player that the manager likes. Unfortunately, I haven't had the chance to see him. He played against Falkirk in the Stirlingshire Cup, and I think Tom Lang put a pretty bad tackle in on him, but the way he landed, he's had to go in for shoulder surgery, so he's still got his arm in a sling, and I still think he's going to be out for a little bit longer, so it's unfortunate, but he'll be a huge asset when he comes back. I think he would have actually benefited most of the part-time teams in the division, because he's
100%.
That way he plays, that full of energy, full of enthusiasm. It's the kind of thing that teammates and fans will really take to. The other two players I don't know too much about. One of them's Ollie Simpson, who is a left back that was signed after leaving Dundee United's academy. I think he'd be on Stenny's radar for a wee while. I'm not as sold on him. From what I've seen in him, he's very, very slight, quite waif-like actually, and I think he's a wee bit timid when he's on the ball. Need to see a wee bit more from him. And the third player is Archie Graham. Again, another player who I don't know too much about. He was released from Queen's Park's academy, a centre-back, quite a strapping big boy, quite raw, but he does have something about him. You can just look at players and think, I think he's got a wee bit, there's something there to work with, so hopefully he can come in and add something to the team. I think with Nicky Jamieson, obviously a player you'll know very well from his time at the Rex, he had pretty much missed all of last season through injury, and they're still just trying to manage him back into being able to play, and he's still another couple of weeks away, so Graham will be playing in the meantime, but we're hoping he can give us the degree of cover that we need. So those are the our three players, and then you've got these like I say, the Magnificent Seven.
Yeah, talk to me how that's going to work. I believe one or two of them may have already have left, but if they are on amateur contract, I think they effectively can play indefinitely on their amateur contracts going forward. I
don't know. I've no idea how it works. We played Morton in the first game of the League Cup group stages, and we knew that we were going into it. I remember saying hello to a player's dad on the way into Capello, and the first thing he said was, "Did you bring your boots?" And then you see your mates would come in and they'd be like, "Do you bring your boots today?" Everyone's making the same kind of joke. We started that match with 11 players on the pitch, some of whom were out of position, and a goalkeeper and two trialists on the bench. Early doors, big Matty Aitken has to go off injured. We bring on one of the subbies, and then I think it was Scott McGill went off, and then we just ended up finishing the game with 10 men because we were decimated by injuries. We didn't have the players to bring on, and after we played Motherwell, and we'd signed the 7 players in that morning, but after the match, Naismith had said that it was the biggest challenge of his managerial career, and they were actually at the stage where they were going to talk to the league and see about cancelling the Motherwell game, just because they just did not have the bodies to fulfil the fixture. They could not have put an 11 out there. So Martin Christie, the head of recruitment, and Naismith got their heads together and were able to bring in these 7 players. Josh Walker, who is from ex-Stranraer, ex-Annan, ex-Queen of the South, he had something about him, wide player, but I don't think he's going to be kept on. I do think he was worth pursuing. Finn Robson was another one, a former Dundee United player, was previously at Forfar Athletic. Quite neat, quite tidy, quite slight, so they just worry about how he can adjust to the demands of the division. And then there was other guys who I only saw very briefly. Max Guthrie, forward, let go by United. Peter Mendy, who was at Albion Rovers last season. Cammy Rowley, who's a fullback that was on the books at Airdrie. Ryan Duncan, I think he's former Queen's Park player. And somebody called Joe Ellison, who I think was let go by St Johnstone. Now, I only ever saw these guys once. I saw them in the game against Peterhead, and some of them looked good. Cammy Rowley looked quite good. Joe Ellison put his head in where it hurt. I'm not sure if any of these guys are worth pursuing in the long term. I think Naismith he only wants to sign players he can trust. I think that's really important for Gary Naismith. I think it's important for any manager, and I think that bringing these guys in was just about getting us through these League Cup games, and I don't know if any of them are going to be sticking around for Saturday. I think they might be. I think they might need to, because we still are short in numbers. But who these players are, what ones are coming, what ones are going, I actually don't know. I don't think anyone knows at the moment. We'll probably have a better idea later on in the week who's staying and who's going.
I wondered if Joe Ellison was going to be one of them.
Yeah.
Because I did see his name on the kind of list of players that have brought in. The reason I say that is because he was on trial with us before he came to Stenny. So he was with St Johnstone, came out of the St Johnstone Academy. Now, we seen him second half of the friendly against Livingston, and then he played the 90 minutes of the friendly against Wraith Rovers. And it was 2 games that we had heavy. We were beat. It was 3-1 in one of them and 4-1 I think in the other. But I actually thought Joe Ellison looked like he had a bit about him.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden when we went in the League Cup, it disappeared. There was no sign of him. We kept on. Owen Foster was one of the trialists who did get signed, and it was tail end of last week I noticed that his name was associated with Stenny, so obviously it adds up where he's been. I actually did think he had something about him, and the way you referred to one of the other players there about you could look at it, the way I said it, when I looked at him, you could tell he came through an academy. He just had that bit of awareness.
I know what you mean.
Awareness about him. I don't think it would be I actually quite fancied us to sign him. I don't think it would be a bad pickup with Stenny, particularly with the issues that Nicky Jameson is how obviously Craig Buchanan's going to be your kind of main man there. But for someone alongside him with the difficulties Jameson's had over the last year or so, it might not be a bad pickup to take.
It's just like I say, I think trust's an important thing. And last season, and I'm not going to criticise Gary Naismith, because I mean, I'd want us to build a statue of him outside the ground, frankly. But I think it was we'd gone on I think we'd won. I think it was 5 games in the bounce between February and going into March, and we played Inverness, Caledonian Thistle away, and he rotated his team. And I remember thinking, I don't know why he's done that. There was no need to do that when the team were winning. You want to keep a winning side going.
Yeah.
But we went up to Inverness. We lost that match 4-1, and his explanation was, like, it's a long place to go. So a long journey. So we want to try and rotate stuff and keep the boys who haven't been involved, keep them interested. I remember thinking, well, that's all very well and good, but if the team are winning, you don't necessarily need to do that. And on top of that as well, he had signed players in on loan, and because players came back from injury quicker than anticipated, he actually had too many players to work with. He likes working only with about 19 players. The idea being that at part-time level, you have to keep everyone interested and invested and let people know that there is an opportunity to get minutes in the pitch and get the opportunity to play. And if you've got a squad of about 22, that's very difficult to do. And I think he might have been overthinking things at that point. And so with this smaller squad, I mean, we're really going the opposite direction with that. But I think it's all just
got
about
his wish.
It's just about making sure if you do have a small squad, then it's got to be a small squad of 18, 19 guys that you'd go into battle with. And I'm not sure he feels that way about some of these young guys. He'll know far better. We might see come Thursday, the last night of training just before the game on Saturday against yourselves, we might see some movement in that I don't know, but I'll be interesting to see who he decides to take forward, if any at all, and who moves on.
What's your kind of best bet thinking for how you'll actually? I know you have the issues around injuries. How you'll actually line up on Saturday?
It's a good question. I think what we'll go for, we'll play a 4-2-3-1 formation. I think we will see Darren Jameson in goals. I think we'll see a fullback. Ross Meakin move to left back. Oh, who's going? Kelsey. If Kelsey Ewan's fit, he might play at right back. We might see Cammy Rowley return at right back. You'll have Archie Graham and Craig Buchanan in the middle. A midfield two of Mikey Anderson, who has had a really strong pre-season. Mikey Anderson
was good last season as well.
I mean, that goal that he scored at the Rex, where he pinched the ball off for Tannen and chipped Morrison, was just an extraordinary goal. Play them two in the middle. I think one flank. Oh, Ewan O'Reilly. I actually don't know. I'm trying to go through all the constituent parts here. I don't know who's fit. The players that have shown up well, the spine of the team looks very strong. You've got Ross Taylor. Ross Taylor has had a really good pre-season, and I think that this is his third year at the club, and I think it's been blighted by injury and suspension and loss of form, but he's looked really, really good over the past couple of games, especially against Clyde and especially against Peterhead. Scored a really nice goal to win the game there. I don't know if he'll be playing out wide. I don't know if he'll be playing through the middle. But he's had a really good pre-season. I know that's not the answer to your question. It's to be honest, Kevin. I just don't know who's available and who's coming back and whatnot.
Let's we'll finish. I've got a couple of questions to finish up, kind of prediction wise. Okay. So we'll look at Saturday to start with then. How's it going to turn out? Obviously, looking back to last season, I think in 3 of the 4 games, I think Stenny were the better team in 3 of the 4 games. Yeah, Alloa came away with 3 victories to Stenny's 1.
Oh, just the 2. I think you won both of them at Oakview.
And
you won at the that's right.
One at the Rex as well. I don't know if you remember, Connor Salmon scored an absolute screamer of a wonder goal to win that one.
I remember that 1-0. Yeah.
A completely, truly undeserved 1-0 victory for Alloa. I think that was in the first game, and then you've got your revenge around sort of Christmas, New Year time, back at the Rex.
I thought we won 2 of those games. You won 3 of them.
Just the one. The one. To be fair, you got the biggest reward in the end, pipping us to the playoff place. But
it was the game at Oakview, I'm sure, when Luke Rankin scored a right good goal to win it as well. I mean, Matt, I've had a complete mind blank.
He's with the better team. I would say that the only game out of the 4 for me where Alloa were the better team. They dominated that game. They were really, really good in the last game at Oakview. But other than that, for me, Stenny were the better team across the other fixtures. But what's going to happen on Saturday? Is it going to be, are we looking at a repeat of last year, or are Stenny going to somehow stop the black and gold juggernaut?
What I'm worried about, and this is something that you and I spoke about just before we started recording, is Alloa's midfield. I think that when you have a midfield of Stevie Hetherington, Stefan Skugel and Curtis Roberts, all good players in their own right, but when you put them together in the middle of the park, you've got something really fearsome there. All their various skill sets all complement each other very well, and I just worry if you guys are able to take control of the game, we might not be able to answer it. Mikey Anderson, as fabulous a player as he is, can't do it all on his own, or whoever's playing alongside him. And I think that you've got a guy in there who can just sit in front of the defence and keep it simple. And Hetherington, a guy who'll just give you so much verticality, he can run all day, and Curtis Roberts. And then you've got like an absolute technician in Stefan Skugel. And I remember it would have been the 1-0 at the Rex. He set the goal, or he came on certainly and just changed the game. I think it had 0-0 written all over it until he came on, and he's just got that stuff where he can just take the ball in really tight spaces, and his brain's just wired slightly different to everyone else's. He can just do things that little bit faster compared to everyone else in the rest of the division. Yeah. And I think we need to keep an eye on him and the other 2 as well if we want to take charge of this game. But I don't see why we can't win it. But I'm just at this time of recording, I just can't see in my head who we can play. It's like, you've got your team. I know how you're going to like. You're probably going to repeat the team that beat Airdrie, and absolutely, that's absolutely what you should be doing. but just how we line up to combat that, because I just don't know who's available and who's not. But regardless, I'm going for a Stenny win. Doesn't matter. Always going to back the Warriors. It's a big game for both teams. Again, it's that setting that barometer down. But you think you can win it. We think we can win it. And I think they're well matched. There wasn't much between the sides on the battle across the 4 games last year, so there's a good chance to pick up where we left off last year. So I'd back Stenny to win it, and you'll be backing Alloa to win it.
Yeah, I am, and it's. We talked before we started recording about, you asked me about how things have been at Alloa, and I said, the difference that 2 or 3 weeks has made. This fixture looking 3 weeks ago, I'd have been quite worried about going at this fixture, but the atmosphere around the club has changed so much, and really we're going at this fixture in such a positive mood after what's happened in the League Cup. I'm kind of glad as well that it's been switched, that it's actually an away game to kick off. I quite like going to Old Cove View, and certainly there was decent numbers through at the Airdrie game on Saturday, so I'm hoping that's going to be the same. Normally, it's a close local derby. I'd expect it's going to be our sort of biggest travelling support will be at Stenny. It's the first day of the season. Hopefully the weather will be all right, and there's a confidence about the place, so I'm hoping it's going to be busy in that away end. And the guys are just, they have to be so full of confidence just now. We were talking about this before we started, but it's a game that's not, in the grand scheme of things, it's a game that's not going to decide anything in terms of the league season on Saturday, but it feels like a really big barometer test for both teams, of where both teams are right now.
I think that in the division as well, I actually think Hamilton are going to finish bottom. I think there's going to be shenanigans. I think they're going to do a points deduction or something. I think something bad's going to happen to them. However, I think it could just be the full-time teams at the top and the rest of the part-time teams. And I do think there's stuff to like about a lot of the part-time teams, and stuff that you're perhaps got misgivings about. And I do think on their day, I know it's a total cliche thing to say, but everyone could beat everyone else. So the fact that that 2 of the teams that finished just a point between them last season, 2 points between them last season, that are coming against each other at the start, there's not been that much turnover in the squads. It kind of feels like a 5th game, if you want to say, from the teams from last season. It's just it's a great chance, and you're absolutely right in what you say. I mean, one of the highlights of the League Cup group stages, if not the absolute highlight so far, was Steven Buchanan's goal against Airdrie. Like, what a moment, what a goal to pick that ball up inside your own half and run through and finish. And it's just remarkable how you've said it yourself, how you've gone from I don't know how we're shaping up for the season ahead, to thinking Real Madrid, right here, right now, let's take them on, let's give it a go.
I did see someone had posted on our thread on Pie and Bob. I think it must have been after the Airdrie game, just wondering if it was too early to order the League and Cup double winners t-shirts for this season. But I'm not quite that confident about our chances, but I certainly have a big change in where I was 3 weeks ago. It's kind of leading my final question, which is the same sort of question, but from a Stenny point of view. Obviously seeing the heroics of last season, looking at 1 point of in with a shot of winning the league, more than deserving their place in the playoffs come the end of the season. What does this year what does this year hold for Stenny?
I think it's been quite well publicised that Stenhousemuir are experiencing financial issues this season, so I think there's a wee bit of cutbacks across the board. I think that's perhaps reflective in our transfer business. Finlay Gray, as mentioned, is the only player of any real pedigree that's coming to the club, and that's not to be dismissive of the young guys. They could develop into fantastic footballers. Finlay Gray, feels like a real sure thing at the moment, and because of that, I think the fans have tempered their expectations. I think that we'll be looking at I think consolidation is really important for us in maintaining our League One position. The new board have come in and said this is probably something that's probably going to last for about 12 months, and by next summer we should be in a much better place. And so with that in mind, we need to stay in League One. So I wouldn't say I'll take 8th just now if you offered it to me. I would want to see us. I think there's a final playoff spot up for grabs, because I think that Cali Thistle and Queens and Cove will be the ones that will take up those 3 places, just much like last season, the 3 full-time teams in there. I think that final playoff spot's up for grabs, and as I said earlier, there's stuff Alloa, there's stuff to like about them. There's stuff that's maybe a wee bit sticky. Stenny, a lot to like about them. Stuff you might not trust. And so because of that, I want to see us challenging for the top 4. That's what I'd say. I want to see us challenging for the top 4. I want to see us be competitive over the course of the season and give us something to look forward to. But I am realistic enough to know that we're perhaps lacking in a couple of areas, and that might stop us from reaching our potential.
Perfect. I think you'll be there or thereabout. I in terms of the kind of league, I kind of agree with what you're saying. I think it'll be those 3. My wild prediction for the year is that only 9 teams will finish League One this season. So I'm with you, and I think there's going to be something is going to be happening with Hamilton before the end of the season. Yeah. Whether I hope they are still around, and of course, more than likely they will be. But I think I don't think they're going to come out of this season without there'll be a deduction at some point. Hopefully it doesn't get to the kind of farce or the deductions we've seen last season. But I do think that 4th spot is up for grabs, and there's probably 3-4 teams I think will be looking at that they're in a chance, and I think Alloa and Stenny are 2 of those teams. I'll wish you the best for the season, Craig. No doubt we'll have you on later on in the year with the rest of the fixtures as well, but I hope there is tears in the Norway stand come 5 o'clock on Saturday anyway, and we continue the start of the season that we've had, and we pick up from where we left at Oakleview last season, and it's more of the same on Saturday.
And I hope that next time you and I meet, I actually remember the results from the previous fixtures. Then that'd be a really good head start. No, can't wait for it.
Don't worry, I'll make sure you don't forget about Alloa victories over Stenny. Don't worry about it.
No, that's brilliant, Kev. Great to talk to you.